A live comparison test between the new Nissan Qashqai and the Ford Kuga, one of the videos you requested from us. Here today at Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars. So with Thomas here today, we're going to investigate which car is actually the better choice for you, what are the differences and what are the main details in exterior, interior and the driving experience between those two compact SUVs. Both cars are actually very successful. You know, the compact SUV segment, very successful in general at the moment, especially in the non-premium segment as well, because obviously they don't cost too much. And well, the Nissan Qashqai is a little bit more successful, even, for example, in Europe is the most sold SUV. And now in the new version, the Qashqai was last year, as a new generation was launched now, so it's very interesting to take a look at the car. And also the Renault Kadjar, the sister model of this Qashqai here. We've had this one in the review so far, so we can also compare that one in the video description. But today it's about Qashqai versus Kuga. So we start with the newer model with the Qashqai, and the base price in Germany, for example, is 20,000 euros. And that's one big difference already. That's 5,000 euros less in base price than the Kuga. But it's also 15 centimeters shorter. So these are two main differences. And from the front, they are also quite different, because the new Qashqai version, you know, it is kind of the base model for a contemporary SUV design with these sharp modern lines, especially in the headlights here, also framed by the daytime running lights. I think it is quite beautiful and also symbolizes kind of contemporary art here in automotive design. And the same counts for the side profile, also very contemporary and got this dynamic look. I like the chrome frame around the windows, and you see it is going up quite steep here in the back, and that really accentuates the shoulders of the car. And also my favorite, we got the 18-inch alloys here, which we got with the higher trim level. This one here is a 360 trim level, so one of the highest trim levels, and there we already got bigger alloys. And in this case, with this two-color scheme, that is quite beautiful. You see we got the contrast between black and the bright color here, and that fits the car very well, I think. And if we move on to the rear, we can see that we got some 3D effect of the taillights here, beginning very far at the side already. So this 4.37 meters length of the car ends right here at the rear, and we see that the design scheme from the front is also carried over here into the taillights. So overall, the design concept of the Nissan Qashqai, this new generation, is quite promising, and also, I would say, kind of a round thing, because we got a lot of round structures and everything is fitting to each other in this case. So I can say here to the Nissan designers, well done. And it's one of the main reasons why the Qashqai has such a success. And then we move over to the exterior of the Kuga. The Kuga is more expensive, difference of 5,000 euros in Germany, so 25,000 euros the base price here. We got the titanium trim level here, that's the second highest trim level, so we can also compare the trim levels. And later on we'll also talk about the engines, which you can also very well compare. You see, we don't have the current Ford front here, because the new Ford front offers this huge Aston Martin front grille. And here we still got the classic Ford line from the previous models, so we have to wait until a Kuga update to have this one here. The whole front seems quite strong and not that kind of this contemporary look that the Qashqai is offering, so also quite a different concept here already at the front. The biggest difference, however, we see in the side profile, 4 meters 52 here, 15 centimeters plus than the Qashqai. However, the wheelbase is just a little bit longer, so that's not the main difference. It's really that you have a bigger overhang in the rear, and you also see from the proportions, while the Qashqai has more of these round structures and really says here, I'm a modern street SUV. The Kuga, especially here in this generation, not in the generation before, and this one here, the current one, also has kind of a van style because we don't have a really falling roof line. And well, that has also a reason. Maybe it's not that attractive from the outside then, but that gives you a lot of space on the inside then if we got this van proportions, because we don't lose any space inside here when we just continue quite off straight here also towards the rear. So the same counts here for the rear ending of the car. You've got a more bulky hatch here, as you see, in comparison to the Qashqai. But that will also have an advantage we'll see later on when we open the hatch. So that's the basic overview from the exterior. Which one do you like best? Just now from the exterior, leave me that one in the comments. And now we'll also discuss the interior and the driving experience later on in the review, and I want to have your opinion on all of the different factors. So with those high trim levels here, the cars still have a difference of 5,000 euros. So whereas the start price is here 20,000 versus 25,000 in high trim level, and with these engines it is then 29,000 versus 34,000 in Germany. You see the price difference is kept then also in the higher trim levels. And we also have two comparable engines, 1.6 liter with 163 horsepower for the Nissan. Consumption about here in the test 7 to 8 liters, that's quite okay. And I really like that engine. It is not available since the beginning, and because the diesel of this one we had tested in the X-Trail wasn't that good in my opinion. This one here is very good, I can tell you. 9 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers, and it feels enough for this car really, because the car is also not that heavy. Then if we move on to the Kuga, the consumption there is higher actually, about 10 liters on 100 kilometers, so 2 to 3 liters more than the Qashqai. Well, it is a bigger car. However, the capacity, 1.5 liter of this EcoBoost with 150 horsepower, so the power figure is almost equal, but 1 second more from 0 to 100 kilometers. And so you need about 10 seconds with the Kuga and 9 seconds with the Qashqai from 0 to 100 kilometers or 0 to 60 miles an hour. So overall, I think both engines are very good actually. So I'm really satisfied with the petrol engines here, just from the power and the performance. I can really recommend you that. For the Kuga, for example, there's a bigger petrol engine available and several diesels, so you have a better engine choice here. The diesels for the Qashqai are a little bit too weak in my opinion, and there's also a weaker petrol engine available, which I would not recommend. So overall, I would say for both cars, the best engine in price, performance are really those two we are presenting to you here right now. And well, with the Kuga, a little bit disappointing that the consumption is so high. But from driving, I think it sounds a little bit better. So these ones are the differences for the engines. So we slowly move towards the interior, but what you can see already here, this is part of the 360 system. The model name is the trim level name, because here we also got a camera. I'll show you later on what's that all about. Let's get inside. The door handle, it feels a little bit more high class in the Kuga, I will show you later. This door and also the handle feels rather, let's say, light. So we get inside, and the new Qashqai, in comparison to the older model, to the older generation, they have really topped up the interior. It has a better quality feeling here now, and especially take a look at the seats. I think the seats are very good. They are fabric seats, and you got two kinds of surfaces here on the inside and on the outside, and we also got, like we used from animal skin seats, these contour stitches. So very well done here for the seats, and I can already tell you right now they are also very comfortable and already offer this SUV style upright seating position. So I get inside. Actually, the entry is quite low for an SUV, so you really have the mix between an SUV and a normal car here. It's not this very high SUV, and you also don't sit too high. But as I said before, the seats, you just sit down and you feel directly very comfortable in these seats, and I can imagine going also on a longer trip here. And when we have the general cockpit overview, we see we don't have too many lines and not too many objects flying around that take it away. So rather a clear setup here, and I really like that. You know, we have already discussed in the Renault Qashqai video, is the Qashqai better from the interior or the Qashqai? I would say it is really more in favor of the Qashqai, so also check out that video and let's discuss that further. By the way, the shifting lever here, it's actually quite high. I don't like it when they are so long, actually, because that also creates some kind of an atmosphere, more like an older atmosphere in my opinion, but that's just a detail. Beautiful is that we got some forks leather here, also with stitches. That's also quite good. You know, we are here in this 360 trim level, so we have a lot included here already. Also a 2-zone air conditioning, you can see it right here. We can control it for co-driver and the driver, so that's both possible. And that's also special here for the Qashqai, because you have so much already included with this higher trim level, more than in the Kuga. So that's a basic difference. For example, here in this 360 trim level, which is obviously still cheaper than the Kuga is, we, for example, also have this 360 surround camera included, and that's very interesting actually. I can show you that right now, because the general multimedia system, well, it is, I think, quite okay. Of course, better than the previous version. You see it right here. You can zoom in and zoom out. The styling is actually quite modern. It could be actually a little bit faster, but in general you get along with it quite well. It's a mix between buttons. For example, here, if you click on nav and the touchscreen, the most stuff you do actually really with a touchscreen. For example, if you just type it here, or if let's go to the radio, we already got the DAB here included, that they can also pick all the digital stuff from the radio. That's also quite good. And I can also click on the camera, even if the car is not on. Here on the left side, we see the normal rear view camera, not the best solution though, but we have the 360 view from above. It's a fake drone view, and you see these ones are the two cameras at the side mirrors, and the front camera and the rear camera. And so I have this round view. Usually we just have this in big luxury cars, but here already in a car with all extras, and this engine only cost 29,000 euros, so below 30,000 euros. I think this is a really good deal that we have that. And everything else below here, you see it's a clear setup, also very easy to control, and the quality impression is quite fine. However, the Kuga there, about the interior quality, is a little bit better in my opinion. I'll show you later on when we compare the Kuga why. About storage spaces, you can see it here at the inside of the doors. It's not too big, but you have kind of a hole for a bottle there. Then the glove box slides down quite slowly, also enough space, standard glove box here. Then let's continue to the middle console. Here in the front we got a 12-volt supply and electronic handbrake. I don't like those. They are kind of practical on one hand, but usually I prefer the manual ones. We have that one in the Kuga, by the way. Let's move on. Very steep bottle holders here. Just some space for maybe wallet or your phone. And then the middle box is actually split in two. You can put also a wallet or phone in here, and then the lower part here with USB port and another 12-volt power supply. And you can actually put a huge bottle in here. So especially for beverages, we have good solutions here in the Qashqai. And here you have another good perspective here on the cockpit. The surface of the steering wheel also feels high class. Well, the buttons here, well, they are not my personal favorite, but overall I can really say it's not the most high class interior, but everything is very solid and kind of easy, you know, there's nothing too much overload in this interior. They really thought about what do we need as the basic functions, and you could just sit down and get along with everything very well. And that also explains the success, because this car is, I would really say, easy in every aspect. Exterior, interior, how you get along with the car, how you drive it. And that, I think, is one of the big advantages here of the Qashqai. Let's now get to the rear. You know, the car is very compact, really, 15 centimeters shorter than the Kuga, but that can also be some kind of a disadvantage, because in the rear we have less space then. So I would rather say it's not the best car to travel with for people, but you see, still, however, as I would be sitting in the front, 1.86 m, my knees are quite okay here still in the rear, so they really use the space they have. We don't have a panoramic roof included here right now. There is one available, one which you can not open, and but it goes all the way. It can get really hot in summer, by the way. But you see here, without the panoramic roof, I have a lot of space here left. So overall, you can see here, all the space they have available was very well used here. Even though the car is kind of has this round shape from the outside, we just lose a little bit of space in the trunk, we'll soon see. But in general, sitting here in the back, I think it's quite okay. And for the size of the car, I'm really surprised. What you feel, by the way, and maybe you see it already, I'm sitting quite low. So even more for the rear passengers here, you really don't feel like sitting in an SUV, because it really feels more like just normal compact car style. And a very nice detail you see also, just with fabric surfaces you can create a high-class atmosphere that looks really fancy with contrast stitches. I really like that they put it here in the higher trim level fabric with contrast stitches also in the rear compartment here. Really good that they paid attention to those details. Let's take a look at the trunk, and here the Qashqai definitely loses against the Kuga because the car in general is shorter. And I've put two big suitcases in here because that's a better measurement for you than telling you any numbers. Now please remember, have the suitcase put here, and the very important thing is, although those big suitcases are put longitudinal, they still fit here in the trunk, and that's a very important thing. But you see, there's no much space left here, and it will be different in the Kuga. In the Kuga we will have this kind of space left then in the trunk. Also, the height is a little bit limited, so you see that very well fits, but it's not possible to put more stuff below it, unless there's another possibility if I put the suitcases out here, because that they have this even loading area. They have used a trick. They've put in this separate levels, which you can remove. So if you want to have your trunk a little bit steeper, you can just put them out and also leave them out. That is also possible. And it's just maybe it won't fit in the length in total. Maybe let's put the black suitcase in here. That one, you see, that one fits if you put it in the middle, but the other one is a little bit longer, then it doesn't really fit anymore, so you have to arrange your stuff then. However, if we are with a maximum possibility for loading now, let's check how we can flip the seats, and we're not able to do that from the trunk. We have to go to the front and then flip it. You see there's a 1/3, 2/3 split. I would prefer that if you can also do that from the trunk, but I'm not sure. Are those systems really that expensive? I guess not, but they're not included here and not in the Kuga either. So that's the total loading space in here. You see, if I put those levels in between in again now, you also see that we then got an even loading space. Well, I think it's not too bad to have the system because you're really flexible then, and whatever you prefer, you can use that one then. And by the way, here are also some practical side stuff. Also, you can also attach it here. So I think overall that the car is not the biggest one. You still used it very well here from the inside, and even if you, well, you see here from the round exterior design, that's the space you lose in the height. But I think it's still quite okay. To make it easier for you to follow, we continue with the trunk of the Kuga in the comparison now. And first I'll show you the keys. I think the Ford key feels a little bit more worthy. And here we also got the electric hatch, and it's also possible, I think the foot opening mechanism should also be included in here. Maybe, I'm not sure if this option is included, maybe not. However, I don't like it anyway, so I just use the key, well, use this button below here or press it here twice. Then the hatch opens electronically. Let's see if it stops if I hold my hand here. Again, not sensitive enough in my opinion. The same with closing down, by the way. Everything looks quite solid here. A little bit better process in the Qashqai, I think. Also here with this vertical cover. And then you see we have more space, especially going further. Here we don't have more space below here. Just the repair stuff, emergency stuff. But then I can show you when I put those suitcases in, what's the real difference. And there you see you've got more space in the height and also in the length. You remember that especially with this suitcase, the Qashqai ended like right here, and that's kind of the more of the space you have here in the Kuga. So if you need a bigger trunk, then you're really better off with the Kuga in this case. However, it's also not possible to flip the seats from the rear. You also have to go around to the seats, and I put the suitcase out again that you can really see how that works. Oh, we got some passenger right in here. So let's see. The seats can also be flipped here. Again, 2 side, 1 side split. This is here a cover that the gaps behind this one here are covered, that you also have an even loading space in here. And if I then flip also the other seat, you see we have really a lot of space in the Ford Kuga, and that is one advantage. And also it's thanks to this van kind of style, because we don't lose any luggage space, and wow, that's really a huge loading department. And the difference also to the Qashqai, we've seen it in the end. You see here, this one is very straight, rather straight, and so we also have a lot of space here in the height. For example, we can also remove the whole cover here, and then we can really transport machines in here. So you can just flip up the seats again, and what is very interesting that the seating area moves up and down according to that the loading area keeps being flat. That's a very interesting system, by the way. You have to use this lever here to put them down or up again. And we already see it right here now. In the titanium version, we have the mix of, well, I'm quite sure it is Volks leather. I have to confirm that, but I'm quite sure about that. And fabric seats. So very beautiful setup here, and just from design, and they also see and look high class, I think. And well, we can continue here with the rear department, because I'm also very anxious about that, how it's looking with the knee space here in the Kuga. You can open the doors a little bit wider, so it's easier to step in the Kuga, and the Kuga itself also sits a little bit higher, so it's also a plus then for getting in the rear. And you see I have, well, a little bit more space for my knees, I would say, but the bigger difference is really that I sit way higher here. So in the Qashqai, I feel like being in a normal car, and here you really got this SUV or a high van feeling, definitely. Also quite a lot of space above my head, so no problem also for adults here in the back. But really the main difference is you really feel you are sitting higher here. The seating position itself, however, is a little bit better in the Qashqai, I think, because the rear bench is shorter here in the Kuga, I feel. I'm not feeling that comfortable here in the rear as a tall person. However, I think for children, it's really better here in the Kuga. Even if you have more, maybe a little bit more knee space, depending on how the front seat is situated, I would still feel more comfortable in the Qashqai just from the seating position in the rear. That's a very interesting finding here, because, you know, when you're smaller, you feel better. When you sit a little bit higher, you don't feel so lost. But as an adult, just I think maybe the seat is a little bit too hard. Maybe that's the case, but very interesting finding here. So, and you know, we've done it the other way around. Now we are finally at the front of the interior. The door handle and the door itself feels a little bit heavier. That makes a little bit more of a solid impression. And I think also the door is opening wider, so there's an easy entry guaranteed here for the Ford Kuga. And again, the difference is that you sit higher, more feel like a higher SUV here in the Kuga. However, you see that the whole cockpit is rather bulky. It comes quite far in the front, that can be a little bit intimidating, and I also don't like that setup. I think, especially in an SUV, it's better when this is a little bit more spacious. However, the shifting lever, I think it's quite nice because it's placed here inside the upper middle console a little bit, and so also the lever itself is a little bit shorter. Feels a little bit better to shift, I think. We still got the old Ford Sync 1 system here, so this one looks rather old-fashioned. The Ford Sync 2 system has to be coming for the Kuga, or maybe in the new Kuga there will also already be the Ford Sync 3 system. Here we even don't have a GPS. You have to buy the extra. It's not directly included. However, with the 360 trim in the Qashqai, it is included. It's not included in the titanium trim level here. And you see, you have to get rid of all the buttons. Maybe you've seen our new Ford reviews from the CMX, Focus, and so on. There we have the current Ford system. And so here only got this very, very small screen, for example, here for the parking aid. And well, that's not what you expect again nowadays. However, the instruments still look quite fancy, I think. Just like how it is actually constructed, also with the numbers and just the font that is used for the numbers and the buttons. This is actually quite nice, I think, still. Also, the steering wheel is very well to control. It reminds us a little bit of classic cars because this layout was often used, that you see that the middle part's a little bit farther in the back and the front part comes a little bit out, and at the back side of the steering wheel you also have a good place for your fingers. All the surfaces here and how the buttons are constructed, it actually feels quite good. Also the temperature control was a little bit hidden here behind the shifting lever, but that's all also very easy to control. And overall, how they made the beauty parts here of that one, feels and looks a little bit more high class than in the Qashqai. So overall, maybe a little bit better in the interior quality, I would say, but there is not really a huge difference anymore than it was before. However, you generally feel quite good, besides of this very huge cockpit that is longing towards the interior, I would say. Favorite here in the titanium equipment are really the seats with a mix of fabric and, I'm pretty sure, again, it's Volks leather, really just optical, visually it is very well done, and also where you sit on that one. You know that it's kind of this rough surface. It feels really good to sit on, and also lets the air a little bit circulate, especially on the back and on the seating area. That's very well done. And the seating position, again, is very upright and quite high, and that is also very good for longer road trips. So this one is definitely also a good travel car. The storage space, maybe not that very well suitable for a bottle like in the Qashqai at the side, but at least we got this side stuff here for the storage. Then let's continue with the glove box. Also kind of spacious, flips down quite smoothly. Then we don't have anything here. We just have the bottle holders in the middle, and you see there are also different sizes possible. By the way, the seat heating is situated here. 2 levels, no, sorry, even 5 levels are possible for the heated seats. 12-volt power supply here. By the way, just a very detail. This cap here of the 12-volt supply, it looks better and feels better than the one in the Qashqai. The other one is just a cheap plastic stuff and also stays in this position. This one also flips back. Then below here there's also steep space for a very big bottle as well as a USB port. Let's go here with the Ford Kuga for the driving, and I've already mentioned it a little bit. I'm generally very satisfied with both engines, both of the turbo petrol engines, because they're not too expensive for the cars and they already give you quite good power output, I must say. So you don't really need more power for these cars. Maybe if you just have like everything loaded, a lot of stones maybe in the trunk, and then want to go on the motorway, then maybe, but in most of the cases you'll be very fine with these petrol engines here. You don't really need the diesels. However, the Kuga, you know, about 10 or maybe more liters on 100 kilometers. That's a little bit too much, and I would like this consumption to be quite lower, then it would be really fine, because in general, just from the sound, very silent, very evolved, these engines, and I really like it. It feels kind of easy and also very well processed when driving it. Better than the diesel, it makes a little bit more noise. So then it's really a pity that in this case it consumes so much fuel. But in general, if fuel is not that expensive, and at the moment it's really not that expensive, mostly because of the low oil prices. But in Europe, you know, because of the euro-dollar exchange rate and more, it is not that cheap. But especially our colleagues in the US, they'll be very happy, or maybe don't care if it's 10 liters or 100 kilometers here. Shifting process also very smooth, also feels high class here. I also like that. One thing I mentioned before is the Kuga does not feel that agile. It's not too hard to drive, however, but because the cockpit is kind of huge here, it sometimes rather feels like you would turn a ship or something like that than rather an agile SUV. And especially when I'm cruising around here very slowly here now, and maybe need some parking space in the lot, there the Qashqai does have an advantage because it is smaller, easier to control, and also has a better overview, and the whole cockpit front here is also not that bulky. However, the Kuga has an advantage in general, just generally speaking about the Kuga, because it does make you feel comfortable. Just when you touch the steering wheel, when you see and feel all the surfaces here, and also with the quite evolved engine, you feel very good in the Kuga, and I think that is maybe something you cannot control that well with the car. It just has to be in the general setup if you feel good in the car or not. There, most of the Fords do actually a quite good job with the drivers, and that's pretty much fine. So you see also the sound installation is quite good. It's very silent here inside, and I really appreciate that with cars, because that also makes a lot of the feeling the car transports. And of course you can open the window, especially in summer times, but when you have them closed, especially on the motorway, you rather want it to be silent, and that's always quite important. Yeah, especially now when I'm shifting very much, I really appreciate that the shifting process is quite smooth. Again, this upright seating position also helps me in the long term. So overall, we have a quite good setup. The driving experience could be a little bit more agile, so if they maybe work on the new Kuga, that would be one aspect, that it feels a little bit lighter than it actually is. But however, you have to think about, it is still the longer car than the Qashqai. Now we have switched over to the Nissan Qashqai. This, you already feel it, the smaller car, and you already feel it in the cockpit, I think. You have kind of a better overview, and also the cockpit doesn't come towards you that far, and that gives you a more secure feeling when driving. And also when you look to the side or to the rear, you can better see where the car is actually ending, so that's a clear advantage. The Qashqai really rather feels like not like a big SUV, but just like as a normal compact car. And well, that can be an argument for someone for it or against it, depending on what you rather prefer yourself, rather this SUV style or this normal car style. So if you not want to get used to this SUV feeling, then the Qashqai is really the right choice for you. If you rather prefer that higher seating position and this big bulkier SUV feeling, then it's better to go with the Kuga, definitely. In general, the shifting process feels a little bit more quality-wise than the Kuga, and in general, you also feel by driving that the Qashqai is the kind of simpler car. Well, yes, it also costs 5,000 euros less, as we take Germany for the example, and you also feel that and see it in the cockpit, in the interior. And I think you also feel a little bit while driving. The suspension is a little bit more refined with the Kuga, I must say. However, I think that the suspension here is also not bad. From the turning circle here now, very good job. Very steep corner here. That wouldn't have been so easily possible with the Kuga, for example. There the Qashqai really has an advantage. However, even if you don't sit that high, the seating position itself is still very comfortable. Just from the very seat layout I'm sitting on here, and that's also very suitable for tall persons. So I was quite surprised about that, very positively surprised. There you can really have a good note. The petrol engine is also feeling quite good. Maybe the Kuga is just from the acoustic side a little bit better, but not actually such a huge difference, I would say. Both petrol engines are very good. The advantage here is that in combination to the kind of smaller car, you have less consumption. Right now, well, it's always between 7 and 8 liters on 100 kilometers, and it's quite feasible, I would say, definitely better than with the Kuga. So I think these two engines, you can really pick both of them. I'm not so sure if I would go for the diesels in here, only if you're really driving a lot of kilometers during the year and really need that lower consumption than from the diesel. But it always depends on also the tax situation in your country. If that's maybe a difference, then for example in Germany you also pay more taxes for a diesel and then it only pays off if you really have driven a lot. So now I'm turning the car, also using the rear gear, because here we also have the rear view camera, and I'm checking also this fake drone view from above, and it really helps me to control the car, because I can also see that I don't damage those very precious alloys we have, the very beautiful alloys. And so I'm really still keen on that system, that we already have that one in a car that is not costing that much money. So a good step here from Nissan. And it's also quite interesting, I think, that they named the whole trim level just after this 360 camera system. That's, I think, a quite nice step of Nissan. So overall, the driving impression feeling here of the Nissan Qashqai is also very good, because you still have this very kind of neutral feeling, quite solid. It's nothing real special, I would say, but it doesn't have to be. It is really a car that does fit to a lot of people and is also actually, by the price, accessible to a lot of people. That is the same impression I get here with the driving. Let me conclude about these two cars, Ford Kuga versus Nissan Qashqai, and it is actually not that easy to decide for me. Well, just from the price, the Qashqai has the better price-performance ratio, because 5,000 euros difference in the list price is really a lot. Well, definitely, it also is dependent on what price do you really get at the dealers, but I think that won't matter so much, because I think Ford and Nissan will both give you some discount then. So price-wise, definitely the Qashqai is the winner. Both engines were actually quite good here, the petrol engines, these 1.6 and 1.5 liter turbo petrol engines, so I can really recommend them. However, lower consumption with the Qashqai, but it's also kind of a smaller car, and that's a very important factor. So if you're just with 1 or 2 people, then I would really go for the Qashqai, because you save money and still get a very usable car. If you're more with the bigger family, maybe you have 2 kids, then the Kuga is better, because you have more space in the rear and also more space in the trunk. So that's one main difference, I think. However, that also leads to another driving experience, because the Qashqai more has a normal car feeling. You don't sit too high, but you can very well control the car also for maybe someone who starts driving. The car's also very short. If you look at the sides all the way around, you see where the car is ending. The Kuga, however, more feels like a ship, like a boat. So huge feeling also when sitting in the car, because the cockpit comes very far towards you. Not that easy to handle then in comparison to the Qashqai. Overall, it's quite good to handle still. So, and all of those aspects, well, what is the main conclusions? And I think from the interior quality, I would still pick the Kuga, because I feel better in the car. I think it's a little bit better processed from the interior. However, all of the facts, they lead us to the Qashqai. So just from the facts, I think the Qashqai is a clear winner here in the comparison. But just for my feeling, I would still prefer the Kuga. So that is my special conclusion here for this test. What's yours? I want to see that one in the comment. Thank you very much for watching Autogefühl with Thomas here, and I hope you see us also at the next episode.